Coming up next on Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable, state lawmakers have yet another budget to consider after House Speaker Andy Tobin releases his own proposal. This as the House finally starts moving on a budget and Medicaid expansion. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining me tonight are Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Ben Giles of the Arizona Capital Times. The state now has competing budget plans as House Speaker Andy Tobin pushes a new proposal. It's almost sounded like everyone and their brother's got a proposal down there these days.
Yes, this year it's a little unusual because there never was final agreement on a budget among the House and the Senate and the governor. They didn't even agree on the revenue number, which is usually their starting point. So last month, Senate President Biggs came out with his own budget proposal, followed this week by Speaker Tobin's, and of course the governor released hers back in January.
And what's fascinating about all these proposals is we seem to be moving, if you listen to some of the more conservative House members, in the negative direction. Andy Tobin is trying to deal with a bunch of freshmen who insist that the budget be truly balanced. Now, the budget is balanced to the extent that there's money and there's expenses. But a lot of that is almost a $750 million cash carry forward. And there are some folks like David Livingston saying, well, why are we using the savings account? Well, because we purposely put it aside knowing the sales tax would disappear. He wants a structurally balanced budget. He wants to cut $400 million, and at this late date, his way of cutting $400 million, 5% off the top of everybody.
Back to Tobin, why release this budget? Why release this budget now?
It appears he's trying to gain some control back over the budget conversation whatsoever. Ever since the president released his own budget, Mr. Tobin has just been sitting by the side waiting to see what the Senate does. Now that it's in his court, he has a lot of freshmen breathing down his neck, a lot of other conservative representatives saying this budget isn't conservative enough. We need to cut more spending. So his does to an extent, but not enough to please some of the most conservative of his chamber.
Does he have to please those conservatives? Doesn't he already have the votes, or do we really know that?
I don't think he's got the votes for the budget. So it's a numbers game. He would like to have 31 Republicans voting for the budget. I think another reason why we saw his plan come out this week is that, if you recall, at the beginning of the week, he said, "Okay, I'm done on trying to cut a deal on Medicaid expansion. It's not going to work. So we're just going to move on. And since Medicaid is so tied up with the budget, what's the next thing you do? You get moving on the budget." So he puts his plan out. These two issues are so intertwined. He late yesterday scheduled an up or down vote on the one budget bill that contains Medicaid expansion. And that's widely seen as a way for Speaker Tobin to try to placate those conservatives who want less spending, who certainly don't want Medicaid expansion. Like, well, let them have their day, and they'll all go into the Appropriates Committee and kill that Medicaid expansion bill on Monday. But
that's the point. We all know that even if it dies in appropriations, Heather Carter has 6, 7, 8, 10, depending on who you talk to, Republicans who will vote with 24 Democrats to put it back in on the floor. So this is part, as Mary Jo says, this is part of the process. Who are we placating? Who are we patting on the head saying, look, you got your chance, you don't have the votes, so let's finally move on.
If everyone knows that it ain't going to make it out of appropriations, but it will make it eventually, what keeps appropriations from just mucking up the works as best they can, just not voting on anything?
Well, probably what they'll do is take a vote, and depending on who you talk to in appropriations, it'll be a vote to strip Medicaid expansion from that health budget bill, or they'll vote it down entirely. But either way, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a bipartisan coalition of however many Republicans and Democrats you need to get to 31 votes, they can do anything they want on the floor to revive that bill, to add Medicaid expansion back in.
So specifically to your point, in other words, if the committee refuses to vote it or doesn't vote it out, the Speaker can withdraw it from the committee. Or he can find another vehicle. He can put it through a friendlier committee. I mean, there's no requirement that it go through appropriations. I mean, for the same reason that, it isn't subject specific. I mean, Appropriations is going to be considering an abortion bill too. Tell me what that has to do with the appropriations process.
It's still, but I guess my consideration is that the committee could muck up the works a little bit here, couldn't they?
Well,
The situation mirrors what the Senate was dealing with 3 or 4 weeks ago now. If you have a majority of the chamber who wants to accomplish something, there are any number of ways that they can do it. Even if it doesn't get through committee, you could use a discharge petition, you could just suspend the rules, and if you've got 31 votes, you can roll the speaker and you can roll the rest of the chamber.
Rolling the speaker. We went through this in the Senate with the president. I mean, is he in the same situation here, or close to it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, because it's unclear exactly where Speaker Tobin's going to come down on Medicaid expansion. I mean, he says he can't vote for the governor's proposal as presented, and they might massage it a little bit on the House. We've yet to see that. But and also to your question about, you know, could the committee muck this up? Well, if you mean, can they kill Medicaid? Sure. But, you know, as my colleagues have said, in a way, it doesn't matter. It'll be a very entertaining show, and everybody will get their whack at the pinata called Medicaid expansion. And if they kill it, it can be brought back, and most assuredly will be.
How unusual to see the president, quote unquote, rolled, the speaker possibly rolled. I mean, what's going on down there?
Every few years we get these unusual coalitions of folks who are, I don't want to call them the pragmatists, sometimes the centrists, who find a way to build a coalition on whatever the issue is. This goes back to the 1980s when Alfredo Gutierrez, theoretically the minority leader, became the de facto majority leader because he could put together the coalitions. Mm-hmm. So it happens. Ideally, the party likes to hang together, but when you have people who are the true believers on either side, you know, the Carl Seals who stand up every day in the House to explain why Medicaid is the devil's work, and some people who will never vote for it, at some point you need to move on. And as long as the governor controls ultimately the process, won't sign any other bills, something's got to give.
What are we hearing regarding the governor's office and what's happening here? Are they just watching and waiting?
I think they're watching. You know, they finally, after she vetoed 5 bills, they finally stopped sending them to her. They got, oh, is that what you meant by a moratorium? They're all watching and waiting. You know, look, it's now the 7th of June. They know there's a deadline in terms of a budget by the end of the month. I think their feeling is, look, something will break free. The governor will want something, we'll want something, and we may end up sitting around this table in 2 weeks talking about the massive deal that involved things we didn't even know were in play.
Indeed, Ben, as far as the speaker, again, deciding to do what he did when he did it, does that show that there was maybe a little agreement, no complete impasse with the governor? I know he was speaking with the governor's office regarding trying to ease some things with the Senate plan. No go?
No go. No go whatsoever. Spent 3 weeks working with the governor's office, at least trying to see if there's any wiggle room to amend Medicaid slightly. Still have the expansion, but add some things in that would placate conservatives. And for this issue, I think Speaker Tobin came to the realization finally that the Senate president came to weeks ago, that there is no negotiating with her on this issue.
Well, unless there's one other factor in play. The Senate did put on a couple of small amendments. They put on an expiration date. They put on something dealing with uncompensated care. If the House makes further amendments, it's got to go back to the Senate. The governor does not want to make another Senate vote. So while she's talking big and her press aide is saying, oh, of course we're willing to negotiate reasonableness, the answer is go away.
How likely the House comes up with something that could be very different than what we're seeing right now?
The full House at the end of the day. I think on Medicaid, they might have a few tweaks, which I think could be fixed over in the Senate if the sponsor of Medicaid expansion there, Senator McComish, concurs with that, then that's a pretty easy fix. And on the budget, you know, we keep hearing that there's things that didn't get quite fixed in the Senate budget that they can also do. So I think it'll look a little different, but not significantly different than what came out of the Senate in mid-May.
We're talking, relatively speaking, in an $8.8 billion spending plan, we're talking nickels and dimes here, except for the David Livingston plan where he's going to cut $400 million. There is not the political will in the entire body to do that.
So are we expecting the next week or two not only activity here, getting something done here, but an absolute flurry of other bills flying across the landscape?
Gosh, that's hard to say. It's I'd say there's a 50-50 chance that once they pass a budget, they just sine die and get the heck out of Phoenix.
Really?
This Medicaid expansion issue has just become so toxic that I'm not sure there's going to be a desire to stick around and keep working on the cleanup bills, if you will, which includes some of the governor's priorities, TPT reform.
Certainly, the House Minority Leader, Chad Campbell, has said, look, once budget Medicaid's done, Democrats are out of there. They want to shut it down. No more monkeying around. What is so important that you've got to stick around after these toxic issues
and
are
of course,
dealt with?
but let's also remember the Democrats don't want all those issues. They don't want the election bills, the changes in the initiative process. They're not particularly interested, let's say, in the TPT reform, as the governor put it. The religious freedom bill, quote unquote, they're not interested in that. From them, hey, we're done.
But again, how unusual is it to see, these are pretty high-profile things. The governor kind of went out ahead and said the sales tax or the TPT reform or changes, very important to her in her office. Nothing.
Well, this is the one issue, as you point out, that has a reason to do something. Congress is moving ahead with this Marketplace Fairness Act, which says that any state that has a simplified sales tax system, we will let you impose taxes on all the internet sellers. We don't have that. Now, there are ways of doing that without the controversial stuff, the contracting stuff that has driven the cities crazy. Do they agree to just simply deal with that and go home? Or do they figure, well, look, Congress hasn't done the Marketplace Fairness Act yet, and we've already got to deal with Amazon for them to start paying sales tax, so what's the rush?
And the election reform bills, I think apparently they've been revived into some massive election reform bill. But you know, these things so controversial, so much hand-wringing and gnashing of teeth. Just let's get out of here.
Well, certainly this is some of the election reforms are priorities, say, for the Secretary of State's office and the county recorders, the people who run the state elections. They feel they've really got to have this. They think they've got the votes for it. But now it's all in this big mashup of of a bill that does things like allows, even gets into the whole attorney general conflict of interest issue, the who can return your ballot, how many signatures are needed to get on for it must a candidate collect, and so there's something in there for everyone to like and for everyone to hate, and
that's the key.
Who knows which way that's going to go.
And that is a now or not so never, but now or never issue, because unless they get that passed this year, it won't go into effect in time to impact the elections in 2014. And that's why you've had such a strong push to, 8 weeks they came to meet together in this conference committee to settle the issue with these election bills. 7 weeks they canceled it because they were fighting amongst themselves about how to do it.
Yeah, there are people who say that some of the problems, the reasons these bills, a lot of these measures were in the bill, it stemmed from last fall's election. Remember the long lines, the big number of provisional ballots, which takes a long time to process. And some argue that, look, one way to deal with that is you don't need to change the law. You just need to do a lot more voter education. People who turn out to vote once every 2 years or once every 4 years, they don't live and breathe it like those of us around this table might do. So maybe you put a little more effort into education. That doesn't take a bill.
And the real chutzpah, if you want to call it that, is to take this bill and we'll throw in something that as legislators, we don't have to get as many signatures. These are the same people who want to make it harder to put an initiative on the ballot because, God forbid, people make their own laws. They want to cut the time. They want to erect some new legal hurdles. But by the way, in terms of us getting on the ballot, we don't need quite as many signatures. And that's just amazing.
And as far as just the fact that these bills are measures, ideas, all still floating in the ether out there, there are some bills that are being held. That the governor said don't send them, and I think she kind of made that point clear. What's the legality of that? Didn't we go through this a few years ago?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, the governor did sue the legislature for not sending her bills. In that case, it was a budget bill, and they didn't want to send it to her because they knew she was going to veto it, and she wanted to get it so she could veto stamp it. But in this case, I think that there's a happy understanding between the speaker, the president, and the governor that I want you to be able to get some work done. I want you to continue to vote in some manner on some of these bills. So that maybe when the budget is passed, they can just send her a flurry of bills.
Which brings us back to the original point.
Well, and as long as she's not going to sue them again for breaking the law, then what's the
point.
problem?
Who's got standing to sue? if the legislature's not suing and the governor's not suing, it's not like Mary Jo can go in and say, I have an interest in this bill going up to the 9th floor. The other thing they've done to a certain extent is they don't say the magic words. They'll final read a bill, and then either they will withhold the last vote, the last action, and so somehow they think they may have provided some cover. But, Ben's right. The fact is that nobody's interested in suing. Nobody's making a stink out of it, and so end of problem.
So it may run counter to the law, or at least a ruling, but as long as no one cares, go ahead, rob the bank.
Yep.
The banker says go ahead.
Don't you remember a couple of years ago, we went for a little period there without even having a budget.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, who's going to, nobody sued over that. And the world did keep turning.
And again, who else would sue over something like this?
The only people who might have a right to sue is A, the sponsor, or B, some organization. Let's say it was a measure dealing with the Board of Medical Examiners, and they needed the legislation by a certain date or something. Maybe, but I don't think the courts are going to entertain. Courts hate political controversy, and they try to stay out of them.
So, okay, let's kind of get some groundwork here. Next week, 2 weeks, sine die. Is it on the horizon? Where is it?
I would say you're a fool if you try to.
Yeah, sure, we know.
Guesses, and I'm not going to be a fool. But
But
that said, as she walks over the edge of the cliff, all the tom-tom drums seem to be suggesting that next week's it. That they will have the consequential votes on budget and Medicaid. Although there is a faction that says, even after we get that done, we're going to have to come back and do these cleanup bills, such as maybe elections and sales tax reform and religious freedom.
Again, if it's going to be a cleanup situation, can it be next week?
It can be done. If you take the Medicaid thing to appropriations on Monday, you still have to take the rest of the budget bills to appropriations maybe on Tuesday. If they work actually more than 3 days a week, heaven forbid, they could be out by Friday, and particularly if they make the decision that everything else is not that important. Now, of course, you've got Kathy Herod from the Center for Arizona Policy whispering in their ear saying, you have to pass the Religious Freedom Bill because everything will come apart unless that happens.
We just had a big rally regarding, searching, surprise searches.
And again, this is a bill that came out of nowhere. The law on requiring, or the rules requiring a warrant to search a Planned Parenthood clinic, an abortion clinic, has been in effect for 4 years. Now suddenly, in June, Kathy Herod has discovered. Now she says, well, we have this clinic in Phoenix that may be doing something wrong. Live Action had an undercover video. But I think that to the extent that folks are saying, do we really want to take this, start from scratch, and just tear the place apart with this kind of floor debate?
With that in mind, back to the question here. Are we done here by the end of next week, or do we have another legislative update with the Arizona Capitol Times in 2 weeks?
I think we'll be back here in 2 weeks, just with the... it seemed so bright and hopeful earlier this week when on Tuesday when it was finally announced that budget bills were going to move in the House, and initially there was supposed to be an appropriations hearing on Thursday. That got mucked up. Now we're only hearing one of the budget bills on Monday. They haven't scheduled the rest of the budget bills for a hearing yet. Until I see when that hearing is going to be, I think we could be in here for 2 more weeks.
And part of what's happening is the Speaker and the leadership are bringing these, quote, small groups together. This is the way of getting around that pesky open meeting law. And they're bringing in 4, 5, 6 of them at a time saying, well, what does it take to get you on the budget? What do we need to do? And can we run a laundry list? Can we find 31 Republicans, ideally? But at some point, I think even the Speaker recognizes you got to go home.
All right.
Whatever combination you need.
And we need to go in a second here. But before we go, Howard, we're going to send it to you here because I know John Kavanaugh has a couple of bills, one of which included the medical marijuana, referring that back to a vote, and another was the bathroom bill, which we all got very excited about here earlier in the set. What happened to those?
Well, John made a big huff and puff and beat on his chest and said, look what I'm doing here. The marijuana bill is in some ways the more interesting. He contends that, first of all, it did pass by like 8,000 votes or something. He said folks were misled, they didn't really understand it, and that if it was put back on the ballot in 2014, folks will defeat it. Small problem he had in his own party, which is suddenly Republicans realized, let's see, you put the marijuana bill on the budget, who does that bring to the polls? Democrats! Democrats come to the polls, they vote against Republicans, Republicans lose seats. That was the end of that.
Libertarians go to the polls too, and a lot of libertarians can lean right to Republican sides.
Well, they can, but on a marijuana issue, but it's hard to know. But there aren't that many libertarians that are going to make a big difference. The bathroom bill was a slightly different problem, but the same basic issue. Originally, he wanted to make it a crime to go into a restroom where the sign on the door didn't match your plumbing. Oh, come on, who's going to enforce that? Then he said, well, we're going to make it so a small business can't be sued for violating a Phoenix or a Tucson anti-discrimination ordinance. I think a lot of his members, and particularly over in the Senate, which hadn't even seen it yet, said, come on, do we really want to get in the middle of this? What problem has occurred? Tucson's had this ordinance since 1999. Nobody's ever brought it up.
So there's sort of a message here. Things are falling. Things that seem so important this late in the game, they're just not. They're going to go by the wayside. So will next week, will the final votes on budget and Medicaid shut it all down? That's the big question. Is there anything that's more important?
If they can work through Saturday, I think we can get out of here. I love Ben's young optimism, but we'll beat that out of you.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution this evening. Monday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about a program that allows families to use state funds on non-traditional education options. And the U.S. Marshal for Arizona will discuss law enforcement issues affecting both sides of the border with Mexico. That's Monday evening, 5:30 and 10 on Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.